Welcome. You're listening to the Kingdom Radio broadcast, live from Jerusalem, Israel, with a message of hope to the world, of love revolution to stand against evil, to hold up the light of truth, and to provide an alternative path for the world that leads upwards. Join us now. I'm your host, Joe Holiday. Welcome. It is September 22nd, 2014, and this is a live event. And the intention of this event is to highlight the reason why we need a love revolution here in Israel. First of all, the world democracies, including that of Israel, is broken. Everybody has come to realize that voting changes nothing, and that doesn't matter if you vote for the left or the right, the same direction, the same crimes are perpetuated by all parties. They all speak a good game, but when it's their turn, they perpetuate the same crimes, working for the corporations, working against the people, working for the benefit of the world government, the United States, the United Nations. And I think it's quite clear to everybody in the world, whether you like Jews or not, is that the United Nations and world government is set against Israel. And you may say that Israel is controlled by the United States. Well, what kind of a stupid control would it be to have some government like the United States dictate to us, to Israel, that we should let terrorists go in order to get some sort of a peace deal discussion, or to be able to sit and talk for a peace deal? This is only done because it's being demanded by the United States. So if Israel controlled the United States, why didn't we let Pollard go? Why are we not getting more money or getting more benefit from the United States if we control the United States? This is just more garbage from Jew-hating people who find it fashionable to hide their anti-Jewish feelings by hating Israel. I don't hate Israel, and yet I'm the biggest critic of the Israeli government, the Israeli system, and the Israeli policies. And those policies are against Jews, first and foremost, surprising as it may seem. They're against Arabs, they're against black people, they're against everybody. The reason why they're against Jews is this is the only government in the world that takes Jews out of their home for being Jewish. It is a crime. It is a global crime. It is a crime against God, against even the so-called world government, the United Nations. It's called ethnic cleansing. You can't take people out of their home for being who they are. I don't care if they're Jews, Arabs, Christian, atheists. It doesn't matter. You don't take people out of their home for being who they are. But that is exactly what Israel has done as a matter of policy, which is a crime against the state, a crime against humanity, and the government has lost its legitimacy by perpetrating this crime. Also, Israel has the finest intelligence services in the world, and Israel knows when every tunnel is being dug in the Gaza Strip in real time. They have highly sophisticated satellites with listening devices that can hear any underground tunneling that's going on. They know any weapons factory before it produces any weapon. They know when it opens. The Israeli intelligence doesn't have to actually have loafers or boots on the ground. They have such sophisticated software technology that they can eavesdrop on any conversation, whether it's on a cell phone or whether it's a private conversation inside of somebody's house. And certainly, even with old technology, Richter scale technology, one can determine underground disturbances, minute underground disturbances, with listening devices and software in order to get rid of the background noise. So what is going on here? Well, Israel is promoting willingly the world government policy. And a world government policy is mutually assured destruction. Look it up. It is a military posture that is by design, and it is right down to the neighborhoods. It's not just by nation states. And what it means is that they set governments up against each other so that they will mutually destroy each other, and that supposedly keeps the peace. But we know that has not kept the peace, that the balance of power and mutually assured destruction has done just that, has assured destruction for everyone. And the policy of control is that if I have you fighting and your friend fighting, and I'm funding both of your fight against each other, then I control both of you. If one friend gets too strong, I start funding the other friend. If that friend gets too strong, I start funding the other friend, so that they both are fairly equal in killing each other constantly, and I stay in control of both of them. And I pretend to be both of their friends while I'm funding both of their enemies in order that I stay in control. This is the program going on all over the world, and it's going on in Israel. And we have the power to stop this. And the only way that we're going to be able to stop this mutually assured destruction posture and policy, which is by design all over the world, is if that we stop it here. You see, the one thing about Israel is the whole world has its eyes on Israel. You'll notice in the news, whether there's war in Israel or not, Israel is in the news just as much as the United States is in the news. Because governments and people have an understanding, in a sense, that what happens in Israel will affect them. And so you can imagine that when Israel has a love revolution to get rid of this phony democracy that we have and reinvent the entire bureaucracy in order to make it accountable to the elected officials and to make the elected officials accountable to the people, then we will have a responsive and servant government. But we're going to need to clean house. And the only way to be able to clean house is to have a revolution and rewrite all of the rules. We can't have an election, because it doesn't matter if anybody who's a great person willing to die and not be sold out or even be deceived, they will not be able to get anything done, because the bureaucracy controls the prime minister or the president. The president of the United States is controlled by the Treasury Department, being protected by the Secret Service. He's not being protected by the Secret Service. He's being guarded and watched by the Secret Service. And if he gets out of line, well, you'll see what good the Secret Service will do, like John F. Kennedy or Ronald Reagan, who was nearly killed, surrounded by Secret Service. And so basically, the leaders of the country are highly controlled in any country in the world, because they're controlled by the corporations, and the biggest corporations anywhere in the world are the banks. And the reason why is because they print money or create money out of thin air. And with this money they create out of thin air, they go into governments like Israel and buy up its resources, buy up its politicians, and corrupt the country in order to perpetuate the same system all over the world, which is a phony currency, fiat currency dominated system. The entire world has paper money that's worthless. And this has been perpetuated by the United States when the United States went off the gold standard many, many years ago. And what Israel needs to do is to provide a role model to the world, an economic role model, a security role model, a trade and justice role model. And this will only be done by having the appropriate government here. Many people believe and understand that Israel is here by the design from above, by the promises of God. And so I want you to take that one step further. Okay, if Israel's here by the promise of God, the Jews are constituted in Israel by the promise of God, and the Hebrew language has been reconstituted by the promise of God. Now, what's missing? Isn't it that the government, the kingdom of David, which is also promised by God, is supposed to be the government of Israel? It makes very little sense that God would restore the people into the land and restore the language and give an authorization to this world government that works against Israel, works against God, and works opposite of God's policies, which is to have humanity thrive, have humanity love each other as one loves themselves, and to treat each other with mutual respect, and to bring the kingdom of God here on earth. This is the role and will of humanity, and yet our governments all over the world, by design, are doing the absolute opposite. And if you don't believe it's by design because you just don't believe in any conspiracies at all, even though the prisons are filled with people who have committed conspiracies against the bankers and against the corporations and the government, they go to jail, and the government does believe in conspiracies. But if you believe that the government has committed a conspiracy, or that the corporations or banks have, then you're labeled a kook. But it's okay. You don't have to believe in conspiracies. Just look at the reality. Do you believe that you're better off and your children are going to be better off than your father and mother were? Do you believe that the world is doing a good job with peace and with security and with finances and with government and with respect and laws? Do you believe that they're doing a good job? So if you believe they're doing a horrendous job in all these areas, whether you believe in conspiracy or not, it doesn't matter. The results are the same. They've lost their legitimacy to govern by the fact that by the results that you see around us, and by the fact that they don't obey their own laws. When a government institutes laws and doesn't obey their own laws, and the first law of government is to protect you, and when we can see that our government is unloading the prisons with terrorists that are known to have killed innocent people, when the government is giving away the water resources of Israel to other countries, when the government is not protecting us by allowing our close enemy to build factories, to build missiles, or allowing the other side to dig tunnels right into Israel in order to send masses of terrorists, when our government sees the existential threat from Iran and simply speaks about it for the last 8 years and does nothing at all, then we see that voting doesn't work. We've had left-wing governments, we've had right-wing governments, and everything stays the same. And so what's left to a free people? Because the government says that we're free. They say that they are our servants. So let's call them at their word. And so what's available to a free people when we see that our bureaucracy is broken, our democratic system is broken, our ability to actually promote our will in the public sphere, the will of the public, is broken. Our government has become our rulers. You know, in democracy, we are supposed to be the ruler and they are the servant. But now we see that that has changed, and voting will not fix it. We also know that. And so what's left? Well, the only thing that's left that is legal in a free country is to shut down the government, is to stop participating in civil society, and to all come out together in mass and to start screaming and yelling and banging pots and pans and demanding that our government go home and that we want the kingdom of David, the one that has been written, the Constitution written by myself, Yosef Yom Tov, and I've combined the best constitutions from all over the world and combined the information in the Bible that is unique to Israel. And so this is the premier, best of the best constitution in the entire world. And any other constitution of the Kingdom of David is a counterfeit, just like the money you have in your pocket. And so we can and we have the right to bring about a peaceful change. And that will happen by our right to stop going to work and our right to come out into the streets and to start making our voice heard that we demand the kingdom of David. Now, the government cannot function without people going to work, and we have a right not to go to work. Okay? And 1 week of the people not going to work and being out in the street demanding the kingdom of David will make it very clear to the government that if they don't step down peacefully, or if they threaten violence against their own people, that they will find themselves on the wrong end of the law, of the revolution. And they will find themselves facing a real court of law with a revolutionary judge, a revolutionary jury or panel of judges that will ask them the questions why they have defied the will of the people. And so if you're a government official, I ask you to join us in restoring hope to Israel and hope to the world, that you have a part to play. We all do. And this will come by each and every one of us speaking to our friends. You're not going to hear about this in the media. And this will be instituted by some sort of a global event. I can't predict what it is or when it will be, but I can pretty much tell you how the kingdom of David will come about. There will be some sort of a global event that will wake everybody up in Jerusalem and Israel that our government cannot lead us through these events, that our government is the problem, and that the only other game in town is the kingdom of David. And events will happen very rapidly, and the kingdom of David will be installed very rapidly. This is the Kingdom of David radio broadcast with a message of hope to the world, a message of hope to Africa in the diaspora. Israel has the greatest representation of Rastafari of any country in the world outside of Jamaica, probably. And that's not an accident. It is the will of God to bring justice to Africa and to reverse 4,000 years of slavery and disrespect and injustice, and to bring restitution to Africa. And this will happen with the Kingdom of David. With the global governance, we're going to have an international system of trade, an international system of dialogue, an international system of currency, and an international system of security. And the biggest beneficiaries of this new system will be the countries of Africa and the children of Africa in the diaspora, because the goal of the Kingdom of David is to reverse all the evils that have been perpetrated by this global system, which I will call Babylon. And the whole beauty about reggae music, it's all about the fall of Babylon and the rise of Zion, because the blacks all over the world understand that the hope for them will come from Zion, and that their enemy is Babylon. And the world governmental system that I speak of, which democracies are broken, and you will only get to vote for one of their leaders, the Babylonian world system leaders. then Babylon has to fall. We need to create our own system, our own movie, and that will only come by a revolution. So I thank you for joining me on this broadcast. I want you to share it with your friends, spread it all throughout Israel and the rest of the world. I'm Yosef Yom Tov. If you want to donate, go to our PayPal address which is give at kingdomofdavid.org, or you can go to our website, www.kingdomofdavid.org, one word, and click on the donate link. Thank you and bye.